We're live. Hello everyone, welcome to Beyond Amicus. We have lovely guests today. We have the lady Akanksha from OA Health. People do say it's OYO Health, and you were really pissed this afternoon that we call it OYO Health. It's OA Health, right?
Yes, it's
OA Health, and we have Nakul from Instago. Hello everyone, and Sashwat. Sashwat is a special guest. He's gonna give us the structure how startup in India works, right? So let's kickstart the session. So it's a common question to both of you. First, tell us, first Nakul and Akanksha, whom do you want to go first? First the lady?
Go ahead.
Do you mind? Yeah. Akanksha was late for the session, hence we are late. So Akanksha, you came up with the concept oil health.
Yes.
How did you come up with it? Because your mom was involved in astro yogi,
Yeah.
and now you have oil health. How did you come up with this platform, particularly from health sector? First, give us a view like how it works, what it does.
So yeah, let me actually brief you on what we do. So OeHealth is essentially an online consultation platform for doctors and patients. So we connect patients to doctors in real time, in less than 2 minutes over the phone, video, and chat. The other part is that we also provide personalized apps to doctors. So as opposed to having a mother app where doctors are listed, each doctor has their own digital presence on the Google Play Store, and they're able to actually give it out to their patients for better patient attention. So the way we actually came out with this was, as you mentioned, my mother was a part of Astro Yogi, and yeah, so she's had a lot of experience in the VAS business in terms of premium calling and things like that. And I was actually working with a lot of startups in Singapore and Canada. And at that point in time, I thought that I'm working so hard for someone else's dream. I might as well come back and do this, myself.
I'm sure you agree with that, Nakul.
Oh yeah, definitely. So I think I'll come to my
You were
story.
with Google.
Yeah, so I was at Google.
Uh-huh.
I interned there, so I really liked the place. It's the best company to work for,
Obviously.
right?
No doubt
So
about
I decided either I'm going to work for Google or a startup. So I had worked what I thought was sufficient amount of time across teams, and I really wanted to start up. So Shastra and I went to the same school.
Oh, I see.
And my first venture started when I was in college. It was an apparel company. And that's when I knew that I have to do something on my own, just that I couldn't gather the courage to sort of, do it full time. And I decided to put in the papers, and I told my parents after I had.
I'm sure they got a shock.
Yes, they were like, "What are you supposed to discuss this?" And by the time, I'm like, "What was that to discuss?" Right? So everything was done and dusted. I was serving my notice period, and turns out, in hindsight, Google tried to build the same product 1 year later.
Oh, I see.
Right?
Wow.
So I mean, I could have had that regret. Oh, that was my idea, and I could have always seen the Google logo at the top, which still would have made me proud. But it's not my logo, my company's logo. So I think it was a tough call to take, but I think one that'll pay off.
Every startup company has a good story behind it, and it's really emotional. At one point, okay, you're struggling, but you're successful at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And tell us, you have OIL Health, which is relevant to health issues.
Yeah.
So, what are the checks and balances you guys take up when you have these people on your platform? Do you have a check, who are the doctors? Are they real doctors, egg doctors? What kind of checks do you have?
Yeah, so actually in the healthcare sector, so every doctor, apart from a few specialties, they actually have a medical registration number with every state council that they work with. So they actually go through a stringent verification process, and we have over 350 verified doctors already on our platform, and about 700 more that are going to be coming up. So yeah, we do take them through a verification process where we check their medical registration number, we check their educational qualifications, all of those things.
Okay. And what about the clients? What's the number right now? Initially, when you started, it's been a year right now, or?
Yeah, so we'd actually done a pivot. We were actually industry agnostic first, which is why it's called OE Health and not OE Health. So we were industry agnostic first, and then we made a pivot back in September last year, and we became health focused. So we've just launched our version 2 of our product because we'd done an MVP just a few months back. So traction's a little low at this point, but yeah, we're looking to scale up now, and we're in the process of fundraising and all of that.
So you just need to log in to your website, register yourself,
Yeah.
and get to the doctor that you want to
Correct.
be visited by. It's through Skype, or you need to visit them.
No, so we've built our own technology, which is again, it's real time. Most of our consultations, surprisingly, are not through video; they're actually through the phone, which is the technology that we're using, and it doesn't require any internet. So that's what we're using. And when you're saying that a patient actually comes and finds a doctor, that's not happening, because what we're promoting is, or what we've noticed in terms of trends, is that a patient in India is very comfortable with their own doctor that they've already gone to. So which is why the concept of personalized apps. So a doctor actually gives out their personal app to the patient, and then they consult them through that.
If you have to give one suggestion to all the girls who's watching you and getting inspired probably right now, what would you say? Like, what should be their game be, and what kind of risk you have to take no matter what for a setup like this or any other industry?
So girls who are wanting to start up, I would say don't wait and don't let anyone stop you from doing anything or tell you otherwise, that that you can't do this, or this is not what girls do, or whatever it is. I've been lucky that my parents are not like that, and they've always pushed me to do more. But yeah, like, don't let anyone tell you.
And which industries does it attract? Is there anything like, okay, this is like, suppose beauty, that's how the common presumption or stereotyping is, that beauty or like something with regard to like spa, beauty, hospitality would be girls' protege. But like, how can you change this mindset?
So yeah, actually,
like you have gone to the health sector.
Yes. So actually, there aren't very many girls in the healthcare sector right now. I mean, I can just probably count a few on my hand. But yeah, I don't see why there is. I mean, I know guys who are into beauty and fashion and all of that as well. So I don't understand why there is a gender bias as to which industry someone needs to be in.
So, what are the most attractive things to be involved with for girls at the moment, so that the women watching there can be inspired and get into it?
I think it's a very personal call. I don't think there's any girl specific or guy specific thing. I mean, at least that's not how I look at it. For everyone, I think their drive is different. So for someone it might be money, for someone it might be something else. But yeah, it's totally.
So you can hear her out right now. That she just said there's nothing called girls or boys. You can get into any stream that you want. Coming over to our next guest, Nakul, would you like to say how you started, how you came up with InstaGo?
Sure. So I was at a conference and I was supposed to leave, and I said, okay, today I have my car, but what if I did not? What would I do? So the first answer at the time was open up Uber, just book a ride. But I really noticed who wants to wait like 8 minutes for a ride, right? We're spoiled now because of technology. So that was the first time I probably opened another app, Ola, and checked and compared, and that was cheaper, right? The good thing is fares are dynamic in the on-demand space, and I'm like, hold on. And I just saw the CEO of Yatra cross, and I'm like, what does his business do? And I'm like, why is no one doing this for cabs? And then I went back to my co-founders. We were working on a car reviews website. So I personally love cars since childhood. And I told them, guys, let's drop this. We anyway can't monetize that. Let's do this. And so the first thing which you ask yourself is, if no one is doing it, there are only two things. Either you're too smart or you're too dumb. As I was telling Shashwat earlier. So now you normally don't think that you are capable of being that smart. And we obviously thought we were too dumb. Because no one in this, there's no Western company also, right? So that makes you even more suspicious, or other investors suspicious. Because there always has to be like, a benchmark people look up to. And I said, you know what? Forget if there's no competitor or a Western company to look up to. Let's do this. And there was no way to do it because there were no APIs. Companies weren't willing to partner. So I did go up. We scraped together an app. Went up to the CEO of Ola at a conference and I said, hi Bhavish, here's Instago, what do you think? And he said, thanks Nakul, this is cool, but we're not looking to partner right now. So, I mean, it's like Indigo Airlines does not want to work with a Make My Trip, because Indigo was really big and the Make My Trip of our industry was really, really small. 4 months later, we met his board member, Arun Sareen, and he was talking about how I should know about all ways to get from A to B, wherever I am. And he said, so that's exactly what we're building. And he introduced us to Bhavish. The next thing you know, Bhavish is writing us an email at 2:30 a.m. saying, okay guys, let's partner. And I'm like, what just happened? So 4 months, the situation turned around completely. Using Ola, we got everyone else to partner. Be it Jugnu, be it Mega Cabs, Easy Cabs, everyone, they followed along. So I think our space was non-existent, you can call it. And when I showed the app, and I was still at Google, I showed the app to someone at Google, a really senior person. And he said, Nakul, Google is working on this.
I see.
And that was when I knew that, guys, before, we miss the bus again, let's make sure that we beat them to it.
Yeah.
So we had our own issues. Obviously, we couldn't beat them to it. We beat them in our first instance. But I think when the bigger players enter, it sort of validates your idea. People question it lesser. So I think that's how Instago was born. It was a personal need, and we just added autos, bike taxis, public transport. So now we're also now doing intercities. So let's say Delhi to Jaipur. You compare flights, trains, car rentals, ride sharing, everything on one app.
Lovely. Good luck with that, I would say. And you went little ahead of Travis. Like Travis just got stuck. Like, we need to get this app, something like at the press of a button, and we get a car. But you thought beyond it, and this is how you came up. So tell us, like, what kind of risks are involved in travel industry, transport industry.
So when we were working on the app, there were a lot of things which were going wrong. We all know about the incident which happened with Uber in December, which was very unfortunate. The governments didn't understand what on-demand transport companies are. They couldn't even locate Uber's office, right? So that was one thing which immediately affected us as well. So thank God for Travis and Uber, right? Because if they didn't exist, we wouldn't exist. Then Taxi for sure got bought out by Ola. So suddenly when there are fewer players, who are you going to compare, right? So all of us told us, guys, there's no comparison. There are just two guys. You guys are stupid. It turns out there aren't just two people. Like there's an entire segment out there. There's a taxi segment. There's a bike taxi. There's public transport. Look at the traffic out there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to drive. I don't want to even be in a taxi sometimes. So I think, so the travel industry is riddled with the legislations which keep affecting our partners, which in turn affect us. Be it odd even, be it CNG, non-CNG. So I think it's a jolt that comes every 3 months, but companies find a way to work around it.
So Shashwat, coming over to Shashwat, he's been waiting for a while. So tell us about this startup hunger. Where do you think it started? Now even the government has taken initiative, the current government, Startup India. So where do you think it started? Like it's becoming more of a attractive area that we need to invest in India.
Actually, I think it was just the hunger, like literally the hunger itself. I don't think definitely a spark sort of came in the last 2-3 years, and I think Flipkart definitely was one of the thought leaders to sort of kickstart something when they did, and it sort of paved the way for everyone around us there, because I think our parents have sort of started ordering so much, and I think they were the ones who sort of after 3-4 years before they said that kapde bina try kare kaun pehne. So again, those guys are the thought leaders, and they did something really disruptive, which sort of paved the way for us. So I think after that, like a lot of people who were already enterprising, there were a lot of people who were very ambitious, and I think doing the startup was an outlet to all of them. At least that was the story for me. When I sort of started out, it just seemed right. Like it wasn't about the opportunity or anything. It was just the timing was right. I found a nice partner to sort of start the firm with, and it just was a very exciting process.
Even you were involved in the startup, right?
You had a startup as well?
Yeah. So it was a marketing agency. So it was a marketing agency that we started off, and again, it was the timing just seemed right. It was a choice between trying to achieve something maybe 5 years later, or trying to pursue something that could just keep you happy for the rest of your lifetime. So it was just very, very simple, and nobody understood. Like everyone was just they were very skeptical in terms of how can you take such a big risk, career, all that. I said, if this works out, can you just imagine how that would be? So that was it. And luckily for us, it was a marketing agency, and the startup boom just happened. Like we were planning to cater like some other companies, and it turns out that we were catering to this entire segment of people who were just starting out, and they just saw us people who gained, like who were good at marketing, and we were just helping out so many startups are there, and we just hit the jackpot at that point of time. So I think it just like people started influencing each other, people started working with startups, they realized that the importance of culture, and people ended up realizing that you always end up hating your job, and the perfect company that you can work for is the one that you need to create for yourself. So I think that's what's been happening for the past 3-4 years, and it's absolutely great, and people are putting their heart and soul into everything, and I think that in itself creates incentive enough to sort of invest in those people, because they're trying to propel themselves as a brand, and that's the best way that we can sort of function.
I would say necessity is the mother of invention. Like it happened to you.
But I don't completely agree with Shashwat, because I don't think we're quite there yet in terms of, I mean, if you go compare it to North America, and how people are willing to take a much bigger risk and not take I mean, employees for that matter. I'm sure co-founders are taking that kind of a risk, but employees are not taking that kind of a risk, investing their time without taking any salary and doing those kind of things, right? So it's still a little difficult for co-founders to scale at the or put in that put in that kind of speed into their startup without the support of the employees. Having said that, there are a lot of people who are willing to.
So where do you think are the loopholes? You said like we are not there yet. So which are the areas we need to focus on? Like it's for three of you. Which are the areas we need to focus on, and we can like ground level it and be like.
So I think what Shashwat said, what really enabled startups to come up, one particular thing, like most of them were technology startups or technology backed, it was the mobile penetration, right?
Yeah.
When the penetration goes much deeper, you have more people coming online, whether through smartphones or desktops, I think your market size definitely increases. So while there are random numbers thrown that India has so many million smartphones, the real number is actually around 60 to like 80 or max 100 million, right? So to your point, I think that number still needs to grow. We're not quite there as where China is. So that's one thing. Secondly, I think capital, Indian startups still get a fraction of what Israeli, Chinese or American companies do. I mean, we get a lot, but it's the big guys getting a lot. It's not the small guys getting a lot. So I think these are two avenues where we have to probably wait more because we're still at our infancy in terms of the boom. But I think we're on the right track. We're not going crazy, we're not exploding, because that also happened last year, right? When you raise too much money, I think it's not always a good thing. So I think it's forced at least companies like us who bootstrap to be really, spend every rupee very, very carefully.
Exactly. I think like adding to what Akanksha sort of said, getting talent on board. I think that's a huge issue. Like getting the right people to do the job. And I don't know, like
It's
without
also because they are a little hesitant to whether to walk into a startup, start their business with them. Yeah.
I think a lot of startups also ended up raising too much money, and I think somewhere down the line, a lot of people just kept the business to just the traction, and maybe the business model wasn't very robust out there, and I think revenue was something that was supposed to be taken care of like going forward, and it wasn't something that was factored from day one. So I think that sort of breaks the backbone of the entire industry, and like people suddenly feel skeptical because when there are companies that are firing like 150 people in one go. That definitely does create an issue for a company that is bootstrapped.
That's true.
It becomes a huge
So
issue.
the next question for you would be like, suppose I give you an industry, give us the strategies they need to adopt for travel. I'll ask you later. For travel, what strategy works?
I can learn from it.
So for travel, I think travel in itself has a lot of segments to it. Because you have like the travel aggregators in the form of say a Make My Trip and Make My Trip, GoIbibo, which is working in the airline ticketing space, and like now like IT goes into everything almost. Then there are like travel recommendation sites. So I think the travel industry in itself is good. I think there needs to be more innovation. I think there hasn't been much. There are some companies that are now coming in the form of the one like I recently met the founder of ClickBoo. So they're trying to customize like. So I think the issue with travel startups right now is that it is actually catering to tourists more than travelers is something that I would feel. Like personally, I think that's one gap that is out there. So it caters like so they're very structured packages. So but someone who wants to do something really specific with their escapades, I think there aren't too many options out there. I think that there is some innovation that needs to be out there where there isn't too much rigidity around the product while you're offering it to the customer. So that is one area.
Your next question would be on health. What needs to be done?
I think we have Akanksha.
Akanksha, give us the pointers and Akanksha can add on to what it is.
I actually don't know what the best practices would be. I think one of the questions that I really want to ask is I want to sort of understand that how a health startup sort of functions is that most of the co-founders are usually young. And when you have a target audience which is like primarily maybe diabetics, which is maybe say above 50, how difficult is it to sort of sell your product to them, and also more than that, like what is the motivation out there? Because when you're constantly trying to interact with people who you probably don't have too many interactions with, like what are the sort of places where you end up drawing your motivation with, where your daily activity?
That's a tough one.
That's a tough one. I mean, there are a lot of elements, but you can just mention two.
So, I mean, we don't have a lot of diabetic patients. We actually surprisingly have mothers who are calling a lot of pediatricians. So, I mean, I and not that I relate to that. I'm not married and don't have kids, but essentially, I think as women we are able to empathize, a little more and able to understand problem. Not to say that you're not
I know it's more like a gender study for us.
right. So no, but I think we're able to do that. Sorry, your next question was what's the motivation for?
So in your daily life, what are the sort of things that you draw motivation from? It's not as if you are a co-founder of the business, so there are no promotions out there, and you don't raise funding every day. So I would say that what are the sort of things in your daily activity that you end up drawing motivation?
I think it's really about the impact stories that come out of this, because we've had mothers who called up their doctors at 2 o'clock at night and had really critical questions and they've done that. So I think it's really about the impact stories that come out of it and how you're actually able to help somebody, and we're sort of kind of eliminating the travel aspect of it from having from having to actually travel to a doctor and just being able to do that. So we're reducing the time, we're reducing the cost, and that actually impacts
Definitely.
a lot of
Cost for
patients.
health, definitely. How about you for transport?
So I think the biggest challenge for any industry, not just transport, is changing habits. Whether in your space where you're accustomed to visiting a doctor, or in our case, too accustomed to opening one particular app, or not wanting to even check the other. So I think it's a matter of changing consumer habits. It doesn't happen overnight. But once it happens, you have the evangelists who realize that, oh my god, this is too cool. Like what Kunal Shah said, his theory of Delta 4. So it's the people who've discovered something, they brag and they scream at the people who are at that inefficient state and say, guys, you need to catch up. So I think it's all about changing habits for the better. Not adding another layer, complicate things, but to make it simpler. So like we could have done anything in the travel space, but we felt that this space can be simplified. Even though Uber's got the car at the touch of a button, maybe there's an opportunity to reduce one more layer. Most people would not think that there is, but we think that there was, therefore we are in the space. So to give you an example, we're also entering mobile ticketing. Now if you've been to the metro stations and you've ever had to recharge a smart card or buy a token, it's a painful process, right? So what we're trying to do is with Instago, the phone acts like a smart card, and there's a upgradation of the gate. So you basically tap your phone, it scans it, and you go through. So it's a benefit for the transit agency, it's a benefit for the customer, it's a benefit for everyone, right? But it's about changing habits. It's about telling you, hey,
Were
don't.
you supposed to talk about it or it's fine?
Perfect. Like we're working on it. I
I'd
won't
love to
mention.
know what technology you're using for
Yeah.
that.
So I won't mention the company we're doing it with.
Yeah.
But I think we'll be the first Indian company to do it. So again, it's tough to be the first in any segment. People don't really take very nicely to it.
Nakul, we're very proud of you.
We haven't missed it. Thank you.
I'm sure it will be successful. So coming to the next question would be, startup in India is mostly a fear zone in many of the states, considering the families they come from or like wherever they're residing, they would not undertake that kind of risk. So where do you think like what kind of risk you need to undertake, what kind of fear you need to abandon and go ahead with it?
He's the expert.
Shashwat, come on.
So as I said, so it's like.
It's not a fear
It's
zone
not.
right now, like the way it used to be 2 years back, but now
It is because there is a lot on the line, and I don't think it's wrong to be fearful or something. But I think it's the challenge to sort of overcome. And I think like so you mentioned that your family members and everything. I think they are the toughest people you can sell your product to. So I think when you can sort of overcome them, I think you're the most confident person on the planet to run your startup because they're the most critical of your idea because they care that much. So I think for me each and every time I wanted to sort of take a decision on that front. I was very pumped about whatever I wanted to do, but it was a long conversation that I had to do with my parents, which sort of motivated me further. That oh my god, like I can sell it to anyone now. So I think so that's how it is. And again, so you see so many stories that are happening around this, and I think it's like I think it's a set of conversation that you end up having, and it's just right. Like for some people, it's just right, and people have that appetite to sort of just go ahead.
do you want to add something?
So I think the parents bit I've dealt with. There's one quitting Google. I also got into IIM Indore, did not go. I also skipped my ISB offer because I was in the middle of Instago. It was tough to convince my parents, guys, let me try this. But I've realized what's the worst that can happen, right? I heard a talk by Vinod Khosla at Stanford, and he says, I don't understand why people would want to work for a Goldman Sachs or a McKinsey, right? And I relate to that because it's fine because like 20-somethings, this is the time to do it. Like when there are fewer responsibilities, you don't have to really worry about other things. I've seen people who want to start up, but it's too late in life, but they have children, but they have families. You realize how lucky you are. So I think, provided you have the idea, you have the mentorship, you have those things in place, I think why would you not want to try? It doesn't mean be foolish and go ahead and claim you want to change the world overnight. But I think entrepreneurship is actually like taking calculated risk. I think it's people think it's the opposite. I think an entrepreneur really takes calculated moves or makes calculated moves all the time.
Yeah, no, in my case, I didn't have to convince my parents because my mother is one of the co-founders.
Mom's been there.
Yeah, so
that's not a challenge for her.
So that wasn't a challenge for me, but I literally had to move from Canada. I had to like leave my base in Canada. I had to move countries to start out. So that was a big thing, completely changing base. But I think it's really individually, it's about the risk appetite everyone has as to what they can do. Some people, only half commit themselves to doing something when they're trying out an idea and they still have a job. Some people would just go ahead, leave their job or, change countries. And but yeah, it's really about the risk appetite, I guess, in terms of how comfortable you feel with it. Because I mean, I know for me, I felt very. There've been times, I'm sure everyone's gone through that, where you've just been like, I don't know what I'm doing, I want to give up, and I don't know why I got into this in the first place.
So everyone has their fears, but you just need to play along, go ahead with it, and pursue it.
Yeah,
at the end of the day, otherwise.
Yeah.
So now, after this question, the next question would be, like we spoke about fear zone. Next would be on sustainability. Like, how do we have a sustainable model? Many people have business model, but sometimes it crashes because it doesn't go right. It's not a good fitting. So, how do you think? What kind of business model should be created? First with Shashwat.
So again, the expert opinion. So I think a couple of myths here actually. So a lot of people at times sort of feel that that raising a good amount of money is something that is a measure of success. I think that's at a lot of times it actually backbites a startup, because the thing is that raising a lot of money ends up creating too many commitments for the particular startup. They need to achieve some really colossal figures, and I think in that process people end up not like compromising on the business model because they feel that they will be able to acquire the customer at a certain pace by just putting in more money and burning more cash. I think that's where a lot of startups actually end up suffering a lot. So I think that's something that people should start considering, that there's a lot more than just money to investment. There's a lot more going on out there, and think like it is your firm, and you should be very selfish in terms of everything about it, and you should try and grow it in the best possible manner. Never give up the culture that you're trying to build. Run the firm in the manner that you want it. Like personally, I love Zomato the way they function. Like their employees are still struggling so much because they still work like a startup, and they're putting in the toil, and they are probably working through the New Year's Eve as well. So there are certain startups which are leading with that sort of example, that they still hustle as much as they did on their first day. So I think those are the sort of things that a person needs to keep in check. So like we were talking about health startups. So there's so many SMSs that we keep on getting that all your medicines are off on 20%. So if people are sort of burning continuously, I don't think you can eventually create a situation where your customer has gotten habitual to buying medicine online. He's gotten habitual to buying it at say 20% or 30%. So I don't think you're acquiring a customer, because you acquired a customer because there are certain people who needed it. But to replicate that by just spending money, I think that's where a lot of people end up losing it. They don't organically create a brand to themselves. There's no personality left to the startup. So I think that is something that people really need to account for, and never give up the soul of a startup just for like achieving targets or keeping your investors happy.
Thank you for the trivia, Shashwat. How about Nasul? First, what is important, the business model or just focusing on the sustainable
I
model?
think, I'm guilty of having got this wrong earlier. When you feel that you're not adding value to the customer, So you're afraid to charge for your goods or services, right? And therefore you think, okay, it should be free for now. But I think now you have to realize that you are, offering value. That's why you exist. I mean, if you're not, then what's the point of existing, right? And not be afraid to charge. For example, Book My Show, right? They have a convenience fee. They never did earlier, but now they know that I can force people to pay 10% extra per ticket, and they're doing it, right? So they've realized that they're adding value, and people are realizing that okay, these guys are more efficient than the conventional way. So I think it's just being confident in your ability to add value to the customer, and then asking for the price.
So my first question was on the business model. What should be the focus point be of the business model?
Depends industry-wise. So
Industry-wise,
I disagree with what Shashwat said. So I mean, there's one company.
We seem to be disagreeing quite a bit with him.
I mean, no. So I mean, most of what he said was
Yeah,
correct,
obviously,
but
correct.
except I think Paytm is an outlier where they've got you used to cashbacks. And they've got you hooked onto it. But even if they were to take cashbacks away tomorrow, I would still Paytm it because it's far easier.
Easier, yeah.
Right? But to convince people that guys, it's better to Paytm it, And in that space, so you tend to recall Paytm more than MobiKwik or Oxygen or Freecharge or whatever. Freecharge is a close second and MobiKwik may be a close third. But I think once you lure customers in, sometimes you have to be outrageous. Like they're offering 10,000 rupees off on a Renault Kwid, like 10,000 rupees off on a car for a wallet company. So I think so that hats off to VSS and his way of running the business. So I think there's no right answer. Sometimes things just demand that. Like not like Food Panda.
I don't know what he wanted to say. I mean, so somebody that I've met regarding Oihel had actually told me, he said if you ever have a choice between a compass and a watch, which essentially means direction or speed, go for the compass. So even if it's speed, yes. A lot of people say speed is everything, but you need to get there faster. But it's really about, what direction are you taking? Are you really creating value for the customer? That's what actually makes it sticky and sustainable.
So people listening to it should take this as your mantra right now because it's essential, right? Like you have to credit your customers because then that's when you benefit from it.
So
like
like,
the benefit.
just to add, so compared to our competitors, one, we're not in a position to offer cashbacks, and second, even if we were, I personally would not, advise my team to offer them because we know that the customer, like what we were discussing before we went live, customers don't come for your service; they just come for that discount. And once that discount is over, and trust me, it will be over someday, they revert to the next best alternative.
So that's what is happening to food industry right now. Where do you think they're going wrong? Because they're coming up, leaving the circuit, coming back, some other industry coming back, again they leave the circuit. So where do you think food industry needs to work on?
The food industry?
The food industry like Zomato, Food Panda, like some of them are doing well in certain areas, some of them are not doing in certain states, so they have to move out. So, Shashwat,
I think it's service, yeah.
and please do not beg to differ.
I think it's a service, yeah. I think it's completely the service because with most of the food starters, what happens is that they don't have complete control over the cycle. So basically, there is the cycle in which your customer ends up interacting with your brand. A Food Panda or a Tiny Owl didn't have too much control over that because they're just aggregators. When an XYZ restaurant is actually doing the delivery on your behalf, so you have given the reins of your brand onto that restaurant, and if that restaurant isn't delivering the food for say 3 hours, that reflects fully on Food Panda. So that customer executive, that poor chap also has nothing to do. He just can told you that sir is just reaching you soon. It's such an abstract term, and you're talking to a hungry person. So I think that's the issue. I think that's where Swiggy. I think they came in really well out there. So I think they just like conquered the service market and that's their aim at it. You can track your person, you can get in touch with that person. I think so that's why they like it was such a simple tweak to the entire food tech business and it's just beautiful. Like,
do you guys agree? We are gelling well at the last leg.
I think Food Panda just pushed the discount aspect a bit too much, and that's what it was known for. That so did Tiny Owl, apart from its management challenges.
So when you stop giving that kind of services, people pull out.
I think Food Panda sort of ran their discount in between just to run Tiny Owl out of business.
Exactly.
There's another startup called Travel Khana, which used to deliver food on trains. So that was really something. When you talk about not having control over the whole aspect of it, I think they really solved for that aspect of it because they were picking up food and delivering it trains, which is like your customers moving, right? So I think there are some startups that have solved for that really well, and then there is a long way
You
for
just
some
think out of
startups
the box, have a good model.
Yeah.
And sustainability, how important is it from a scale of 1 to 10?
11.
11?
Sorry, I didn't have a question.
Sustainability, how important is it from scale of 1 to 10?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Plus one to that.
So you should be willing to take that risk. You should be willing to take that risk. So the next question would be bureaucracy, red tapeism, policy issues. How do you figure that out?
I'll start.
Uh-huh.
I think in the health tech business, I mean, the last time the law was really formed for this was in 1940, which is that time the internet didn't even exist. So I think, there's a huge need to relook at, how health and IT needs to come together, and there needs to be an act around it, and it really does need to go down that route simply because there's such a huge population, there are limited number of doctors, and the only way you can solve this problem is through technology. And so there is a huge need to actually move fast.
Quickly tell us because we are running out of time. So tell me about the policy issues that you have faced and how you can fix it. Can't be fixed because of bureaucracy involved. I'm sure you get more insight.
I don't have much to add to that simply because I haven't really faced that kind of those kind of issues. I think if Nakul has
So
something more to add
it
to
took
that.
me 3 weeks to get a certificate for my other business, just because that particular officer supposedly was on leave, but basically he wanted a bribe, and I refused to pay it. So I think I don't know how one can really account for that except making things digital, where there's no person involved, no cash transactions. But I think it requires more emphasis. We're not quite there yet. The intent is there, but execution may still lack, even in
Do
the
you
main
have
cities.
hiring, firing policies in place? How do you hire? How do you fire?
No, we're not that big a team, so
We're not
we hire only when we really have the need, and we are careful about who we hire.
But in terms of team, so what are the values that you look for in a fellow colleague? Like, so what are the non-compromisable that
He wants to know.
So I think
We all do.
if the person is doing the work for like a paycheck, initially the same employee we had was doing it, that when they realize that what they're building and what people are saying about it and how they're using it, I think they have a sense of ownership. When they can see how their work daily